JavaScript objects are complex variables that can hold many other variables. Take a look at this example. This is an object which describes a car. Each car has a brand, model, a weight, and a boolean, whether it's electric or not. Here we have a Ford Model T, which weighs exactly 550 kilos and is not electric. So basically objects are collections of key value pairs. The keys, like brand, model, weight, and so on, are also called properties, and every property has a value. All cars share the same properties, but each car has its own unique set of values for those properties. Objects are often used to describe things in the real world, like cars, people, houses, or animals. Let's print the model of the car to the console by accessing the model property using car.model. Similar to arrays, we can also access object properties by their index. And in contrast to arrays, here the index isn't a number, but instead the name of the property. Let's try it out with the model property again. So we write car, and then in square brackets and quotation marks the name of the property, model. As you can see, the logs show Model T printed twice. Index access is only necessary in special cases, so you can focus on the dot access most of the times. Objects can also have properties which are functions. Let's think a bit what kind of functions a car could have. Of course, most importantly, it should be able to drive. So let's add a drive method to the car object. Additionally, we'll add a boolean property isDriving to the object and set it to false initially. Now let's add the line this dot isDriving equals true to the drive method. If the method is invoked, the car starts driving, so isDriving is set to true. A car which isn't able to stop is too dangerous. So let's introduce a second method called stop. This method just sets isDriving to false. You might be wondering what this means. It's actually pretty simple. This refers to the current object. So when you see this isDriving, it's accessing the isDriving property of the object that the function belongs to. Let's add a few console log statements to our methods, so we can see what happens when we run the code. Now, let's take the car for a drive. When we call car.drive, as you can see, the console prints Ford Model T is driving. And once we've reached our destination, we can stop the car by calling car.stop, and this time the console shows Ford Model T is stopped. Sometimes we need to create many objects of the same type, but with different values. We can achieve this in a clean way by using the so-called object constructor. Object constructors basically are functions which create an object using the this keyword. Let's create an object constructor for our car object. So first we define a function as we usually do. The naming convention of object constructors is that we write the first letter uppercase followed by the name of the object. So in this case it is car with a capital C. Next, let us define the function parameters. Our car object has 4 parameters: brand, model, weight, and isElectric. The next step is to assign all the parameters to the object using this. So we write this brand equals brand. This assigns the parameter of the constructor function to the resulting object. Let's repeat this step with all the other parameters. The last thing we need to add are our methods, drive and stop. These methods are the same for every car object, so we don't pass them in as parameters. Instead, we define them directly inside the constructor. So let's add both methods using the this keyword, just like we did with the properties. In JavaScript, it's completely fine to define functions inside other functions. That's exactly what we are doing here. We create 2 functions and assign them to the new object when the constructor is called. Next, let's create some cars. We'll start with the car from our earlier example by using the constructor. First, we declare a new variable called car1, and then we create the car by calling the constructor. Remember, constructor functions are invoked using the new keyword, followed by the constructor name and its arguments. Now, car1 contains a fully created car object. Let's test our methods to make sure everything works. So call car1.drive and car1.stop and check the console. As you can see, both methods run exactly as expected. Now, let's create another car, this time an electric one. We declare a second variable and call the constructor again, with the appropriate arguments. To confirm that the car is indeed electric, we can print the isElectric property to the console. So we write console.log car2.isElectric, and the console shows true, just as expected. Now that our car objects are working, let's take things a step further by adding a nested object. A nested object is simply an object stored inside another object. In our case, we'll introduce a new property called driver, which will hold a person object. A person has a first name and a last name, so instead of storing just a string, we store a full object with both pieces of information. To make this feature useful, we'll add a new method called getIn that takes a person as an argument. When the method is called, the person becomes the car's new driver. Next, let's create a constructor for our new person object. This constructor only needs two parameters, first name and last name. So it's simpler than the car constructor, but works in exactly the same way. Now let's try it out by creating a new person instance with the first name Bob and the last name Miller. With our person created, we can call the getIn method on car1 and pass person1 as the argument. Finally, let's check the console, and as you can see, the message Bob Miller entered the car is printed. We have reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot about JavaScript objects. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll be happy to help. Happy coding and see you next time.